you. Thank you. I'd like to begin here, first of all, by trying to put some of you at ease who might be wondering, well, what can a mountain climber tell us about our business? What could I possibly have to say to you that has any relevance to what it is that you do? I'm assuming that a high percentage of you here are not climbers. So I'm going to try to position why I'm here this morning. It is my firmly held belief that there are a great number of similarities that exist between the extreme end of my sport, which you'd call high-altitude mountaineering, and the world of business. And it's my hope that with some imagination on your parts this morning, and an open mind, and a bit of skill on my part, perhaps you'll be able to identify and hopefully leave this theater with some insights that have a practical application in both your professional and maybe even in your personal lives. It looked to me like 62 years had shown that out of every 3 people that have made it to the summit, on the average, 1 will die. So 1 out of 3, your chances of dying are 1 out of 3, if you're going to go to the summit, which was my intention. So why am I bringing all this up? It's to ask you to think for a moment, without looking at each other, what would it take to motivate you to go into a situation where the odds are 1 in 3 that you're going to die? Think about it just for a moment. What would it take? Would it take money? What would it take? Now, traditionally, when we look at what's motivated human beings throughout time, if we take out of the picture love and high ideals, if we remove them, what's left? Well, you just have to read the newspapers and look at business and politics, and you'll see that there's 4 easily identifiable things that motivate people to take chances way over and above what perhaps they should. One is power, one is prestige, one is money, the other is sex. And I'm not trying to lower anything here this morning. I'm just trying to be honest with you that those are easily identifiable motivating factors that drive people to take risks higher than they normally would. Now, I want to admit to you that on that expedition and all the other 33 trips I've been on, there hasn't been much power or prestige associated with these trips. There's no guarantee you're going to make it. And as you remember in 1996 with the tragedy within one night, 12 people dying on the mountain, there's no guarantee. Power and prestige, out of the picture. Money, I never got paid to go on this expedition, neither did anyone else, and we put a lot of our own money into it. Sex, if there's any sex happening on these trips, I didn't know where the hell it was happening. So all 4 of those normal motivating factors were out of the picture. So that should leave you with the question, well then what the hell motivates you? And I think it's an excellent question, and I think it's something to look at and think about today and in the days and the weeks and the months to come. Because in the end, I really don't believe personally that it's so much our gender, our age, our looks, our social skills, our education, that in the end define what we do with our lives. Those things have application, they have value. Definitely. They have value. But in the end, that's not what determines what you do with your life or how successful you are. What determines what you do with your life is what motivates you. It's what motivates you. And that's what I'm here this morning to remind you a bit about. This is what I mean by it's important to question why you're doing what you're doing here. And if you believe in what it is you're doing, don't let the excuses get in the way. Because it's scary when you're asked to go to a place that's uncomfortable, to go to a place where you're going to have to try things in a different way, where you might fail and you might be embarrassed. It's scary. So most people back away. And that's what mediocrity is. It's people unwilling to test themselves, unwilling to dig deep enough to find some courage to try to do things differently than they've done in the past. Where our best efforts, emotionally, intellectually, physically, result in abject failure, bringing financial loss, social embarrassment, physical injury, intellectual confusion, emotional heartbreak. Those memories act more like stop signs that cry out to us. Hey, slow down, stop, don't go any further. Remember last time you came this far? You made a fool of yourself. You broke the bank. You broke your heart. You broke your body. And when we, as human beings, are reminded of something like that, most of us get intimidated, because who wants to endure pain? Most of us don't want to do that. So a lot of people end up, a high percentage of people end up shying away from the area where we failed in the past. We have a feeling for what our capabilities are. As soon as those are roughly delineated, we start to weave a safety net of sorts within this circle. And the safety net is made up of patterns of behavior, ways of doing things, methods that worked in the past, and we convince ourselves they're going to work in the future. Nothing wrong with that. That's logical. The problem lies in the fact that if you're not careful, the security net can turn into a prison. Okay, the consequences of failing out here are unacceptable. I'm going to step back to where it's safe and try to come up with a plan that allows me to manage those risks out there at some level that's marginally acceptable to me, and then execute that plan to get to that new goal. That's one way. The other way is to step back and simply say, I can't, because you're frightened of failing and you're frightened of getting hurt. We imprison ourselves in a cage of our own making. The bar is made up of those fears that we haven't taken the time yet to confront. And the truth is that the only way you ever remove fears in your life is you stop running and you hold your ground and you confront it and you start to move towards it and you get to understand it and look at it. The difference between excellence and mediocrity quite often isn't as broad as many people think. Oh, it's a big leap from mediocrity to excellence. The truth is it isn't. Quite often, the difference is a fine, fine line of being willing to go just that little bit further that brings what you do, what your accomplishments are, and what you're capable of into the realm of excellence rather than mediocrity. 11 years of that experience I had when I joined the Everest expedition in 1981. I joined as a climber and as assistant to the equipment manager. So my job there was to get together the 27 tons of gear we were going to need to do this mountain, gathered it together in Calgary, and then with 3 other Canadians, we transported it to the other side of the planet to the capital city of a kingdom named Nepal, in which the southern half of Everest lies, and then transported it overland about 350 to 400 kilometers to the base of the mountain. Now, when we arrive at the base of Everest, it's at 17,500 feet above sea level. It's a very inhospitable place used by other expeditions for over 33 years on this side of the mountain, on the south side. So it takes a week to clean up the mess others have left behind.